Last night I went to bed with budget paper one. I know I lead a boring life. I tell you what, but it was a horror
Great
show.
life you've got.
Receipts up 4.5%, payments 6.3%, net interest payments on debt 24%, deficit 52% increased. That's not to mention gross debt. It's over $1 trillion next year and growing every year thereafter. CPI still expected, though, to be outpacing GDP growth. Now, this and GDP growth's modest, 2.25%. This means people are going to still go to the grocery store. They're going to still see prices go up faster than their ability to pay for what they need. The Treasurer says we've turned the corner. Mate, reading budget paper one, we have not turned the corner.
No, and well, look, one of the other things that's out there that you didn't mention is wages. Their expectation is that wages are going to outstrip inflation. And so the interesting part about that is if wages are running stronger than inflation, generally that's inflationary. You've got a government that's spending fast, so that's inflationary, though the government doesn't want you to look at the government, but it's the thing that's really taken out something like $3,500 on average through bracket creep from people's pay over the past 3 years or so. And now they're going to deliver basically what they're talking, $5 a week or $50 a week in total in terms of these tax cuts. So, that's where it really doesn't wash because the government ultimately has taken so much money in, but then baked in that spending plus more into the out years that it really is a situation where the government has left Australia and its economy vulnerable to external shocks. And the one thing here, and I talked about very modest economic growth. If you have a look at that, basically saying that Australia's economy, the best it will do over the next 4 or 5 years is 2.75%, when the long run average for Australia's economy, just when it's just ticking along, is 3%. It shows that they really have not got big ambitions for our economy. And as I say, if you want to get more money in the government's coffers, if you want to hand out more tax cuts, you've got to get this country competitive, you've got to get rocking, and you've really got to start to actually get some economic growth out of this. But at the settings at the moment, it's going the other way, and that's the tragedy. The other little one about it is, of course, we've got very high tax rates in this country. This is where competition lasts. I've got a couple of things to show you tonight. I want to show you this one. Just a little reminder. Remember Winston Churchill basically had this wonderful quote, and it says, "For a nation to try to tax itself to prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket trying to lift himself up by the handle." Just think about that. You cannot tax your way to prosperity. I want to show you something else. Have a look at Australia. Try to tax its way to prosperity. These are basically the rates of what we are. Corporate tax rates, 30%, Singapore, 17%, US, 21%, Europe, 21%, UK, 25%. Effectively, we are trying to tax our way to prosperity rather than making ourselves competitive. So if there is a challenge for Peter Dutton, it is to bring the narrative to reduce taxes in Australia, to take the punt that by doing that, you can get the country moving, get that economic growth going, stop money leaving and investment leaving this country, and actually get the country going again, because that's the problem right now. The economy under the government, under previous governments, has effectively stagnated.
Could not agree more, and I love that quote from Winston. Hey, today we can talk about big business, and we do that quite a bit. I want to focus though on small business. The Treasurer was caught out playing ducks and drakes with the instant asset write-off for small business that ends this current financial year. It forced a whole lot of the crossbenchers out. He was trying to say the Senate was stalling on it. They're not. They pushed him to get it through the Parliament. Did you pick this up? What's your thoughts here?
So here's the thing. So it's not in the budget. So they've taken it out of the budget. So effectively it's a cost saving for them. And yet every small business that wants to invest, that wants to go and have $20,000 that they've had as an instant write-off at the end of this year, well, it's not going to happen. The government hasn't been able to navigate it through the Parliament. The government's basically been slow and not put enough of that legislation up before the Parliament. They're saying that basically the independents have tried to play ducks and drakes with other legislation to allow it to go through. But the fact of the matter is that the government has just taken it out of the budget. So where is that as support for the actual people that you've set in the budget that you want to get investing and moving and going again to help the economy to grow faster? Again, it beggars belief about whether this government has genuinely been anti-competitive. tax policy, energy policy, industrial relations policy. These are all things that have driven big business to invest more in the United States where they get a better bang for their buck. You've got to attract more of that money and investment here to Australia. That is the challenge for Jim Chalmers. That is the challenge for Peter Dutton, to try and encourage more businesses to invest here in Australia, and also to keep more of the money if they actually make a profit and do well, and therefore employ more people, get the whole thing rolling again. Because at the moment, as I say, with the government being the biggest employer with its programs and directly through just more public servants, that is not productive. That is not making Australia more competitive. That is not driving investment into this country. And then on top of that, you're suddenly at Tanya Plibersek today, $30 billion investment up on the northwest shelf to extend it. She simply said that's all too hard. We'll push it out to after the election. And if you end up with a Greens Labor government afterwards, good luck to $30 billion. That's gone.
Yeah, but they can still spend on the NDIS. It's at $60 billion. It's double the cost of Medicare. It's 800,000 people. Medicare's all 27 million of us. We've got childcare going up in the outer estimates to $18 billion a year. And they've scrapped the activity test, Ross, so you don't even have to look after your own kids anymore for the taxpayer to be on the hook. I mean, I just find this extraordinary when I went through all those numbers last night and again today. This is the end of the Labor right shepherding an economic budget of some credibility for Australia in the Hawke and Keating tradition. This is the hard left socialist Labor come writ large, which will be worse after the election if it's an Albanese-Bant alliance. And that is where we are headed, to our great economic shame. I think we're both pretty fired up tonight, Ross. We'll leave it there, but I'll catch up with you again.
Quite okay.